Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment on the channel. It greatly helps us to grow the channel. We've been getting a lot more subscribers in recent videos, so that's a thanks to all you guys and all the newcomers, so we greatly appreciate it. So thanks. Matt, how you doing?
Not too bad. Busy time for me, but show must go on. We got a handful of games left, and then we'll get some relief. Summer market will be exciting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it'll be exciting for these nut jobs. Yeah, that are clearly calm about every single rumor that's been out there, which we'll get into towards the end of the episode. But we are going to be starting about the match that's upcoming this weekend against Genoa. Obviously, Milan, not really much to play for at this point, I guess, if you really care that much about placement, but 0 trophies to be had or won by this team. And on top of it, you just have a couple of youngsters or younger players that are in the squad that you hope would get more minutes. But of course, in typical Stefano Pioli fashion, he's not changing because Olivier Giroud is rumored to start up top in this one. Looks like the same back line that has been starting most of the season. So it looks like Ciao, Tomori, with Calabria, and then Teo Hernandez. No Mike Magnan, which again, shocker with that one. He's going to be missing some time. But yeah, listen, for this, you would hope to see that attacking trident of Chukwueze, Pulisic, and Rafael Leao for this one. Again, results don't really matter. You just want to see what you have in these final few games. Because for Milan, you have to make a lot more evaluations this coming summer. Because as well, what is the new manager supposed to be going off of? And I think that's probably the biggest question of all. Again, we don't know who the manager is going to be. We pretty much know that Lopetegui will not be arriving at Milan, so you could scratch him off of that. So for now, Milan have not a lot of players, but quite a few players that need some proving, starting with Filippo Terracciano, who doesn't look like he's going to be getting any minutes. But yeah, Matt, the decision to start Giroud here, maybe just a send off, because this one is at San Siro.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think that Stefano Pioli will use every ounce of Giroud he has left. So expect full 90 cameos of Giroud just kind of jogging around, waiting for a header, and waiting for a half chance to come in. Look, I mean, I love Giroud as a player. He's had a great career. He's had a great career in Milan. Let's call it like it is. I mean, 3 straight seasons of 10 plus goals. I think the last player for us to do that was Pato. I could be wrong. You could fact check me on that in the comments. So he has delivered. We've talked about all the accolades and achievements he's amassed throughout his career and also the impact he's had these past 3 seasons at Milan. But the time has come. I don't hate this. We don't have really much to play for aside from trying to secure second place, which, I mean, if you're a Milan fan, that's the only aim at this point. Although, again, truthfully, it's not a trophy, so who really cares all that much? But yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to kind of add on to this other than maybe, if you're looking for Jovic to get some opportunity, because I think, Giroud's gone, right? We all know that's going to happen. He's going to LAFC. But the jury is still out on Jovic. It looks like there's going to be some changes in the attack. There's going to be changes in several areas of this team. So maybe getting some minutes for Jovic, if not in this game or all that much in this game, maybe in the final matches to come. But I don't have much of an issue here. I think Giroud deserves to get a proper send-off, and hopefully he can get some goals along the way.
We'll see. It looks like the Curva is going to be protesting for this one as well, so they're not even going to be, having any chance. I mean, I think whatever. That's just a separate thing that I really don't even like getting into with all that. I think it's just grown men drama. That to me is just, I'm not interested in soap operas. For me, I would have liked to see Noah Okafor because I think just like his pressing in general, just really interested in seeing Milan's best athletes and technical players play in that front four. Because if you could have Pulisic behind Noah Okafor, Chukwueze on the right, Leao on the left, I just want to see that. What could we do with that? I wouldn't even get upset about the potential of Luka Jovic starting in that. So for me, that's kind of where my head is at. As far as other players, Filippo Terracciano, Doesn't really look like Pioli likes him at all. Really interesting and frustrating sort of match because he's versatile enough to play on the left and right fullback positions. The fact that he didn't even really feature is worrying for me. And I know the matches against Juve, whatever, Pioli has his thoughts, blah, blah, blah. But to not even get an opportunity when this player was playing pretty well for Verona over the first half a season for this year, to me, this signals as to why Pioli is no longer going to be here. You have to find out what you have. And maybe Pioli does play him in the final 3 matches. Maybe he gets a feature in this one against Genoa. But what is the point in purchases like this? And I know we discussed this multiple times. To me, this is just silly. It's stupid. It really doesn't help anyone in this situation. The price of Terracciano would go down. You don't really find out what he has. He only got in against Bologna, whatever. He conceded a penalty, like it happens. And even then, they got outplayed that entire match. They were conceding for multiple reasons. And again, there's also the argument with that one play, Matt. He was better off actually conceding that penalty instead of a tap-in potentially being scored because, it's the Luis Suarez versus Ghana sort of dilemma where are you going to concede a goal that is highly likely to be scored or you give it up to some chance on a penalty? Maybe a save could happen, maybe a miss. You don't really know. It's a better opportunity than that. For me with Terracciano, the opportunity was there last week. He opts for a midfielder in the right back position where Musa did some nice things. But we know Musa's long-term future with Milan isn't at the right back position. Asinine decision, indefensible. Where's your head at with that?
Look, I mean, we're 34 match days in to the season. Trying to rationalize Stefano Pioli's decision making with regards to player selection by now is I just don't have the energy. I just don't have the energy for it. This is one of those episodes for those listening. If you guys are watching, you probably see me shrugging quite a bit. I just kind of throw my hands up in the air and I'm like, what do you expect? Do you expect him to just say, I'm going to put Okafor out there, like you just mentioned. I'm going to put this player out there. Yeah. He doesn't really know. He knows he has no future beyond the next batch of games. Yeah. So he's going to try to basically win as many games as he can and leave on a good note, at least performance-wise and results-wise, and potentially try to leverage that in any sort of conversation he has for his next job, right? The lasting image of his Milan career doesn't want to be him losing 3 games and punting completely down the stretch. Milan have a bunch of winnable games down the stretch here, so they could secure second place. But truthfully, I just don't really have the faith in him to make the decisions that lead to younger players playing. It wouldn't surprise me if you got these guys like Zeroli or, Simic get 6 to 10 minutes. I don't know why I threw the number 6 out there. 5 to 10 minutes in these matches just to give them a burn versus getting them 45 to 60 minutes like we would like for them to get. Like we talked about in our previous episodes, that this is a good opportunity for them to play. Terracciano feels like that sort of addition that was made that now looking back was really just a safety net. There was a lot of injuries this season. The right back position was shaky. Florenzi's typically banged up year to year. Calabria is very inconsistent, and Kalulu got injured, right? So more so as a versatile player that can do a lot of different things for you in a pinch. But ultimately, Milan got healthy, and you saw that in any meaningful game, Pioli was going to go with the players that he knows and can trust. And Terracciano is not a player that he trusts right now, clearly. So I don't know what to make of this. I would like to see more of him. I think you made a great point. Like, he played a substantial amount of games at Verona before we bought him, and now he sits on the bench, and he basically ruined a half a season. If I knew this was going to be the case, I would have said, let him finish the season at Verona, buy him for the future, and let him sit on the bench. Then let him sit on the bench, right? Like, I just don't understand it here.
This is the disconnect that everybody likes to talk about, right? Yeah. Because even what I was thinking the other day was, okay, you have to be on the same page on every front in an organization, a club, whatever you want to call it, right? Which is why that disconnect between Jerry and Maldini happened, and even with Masada, why they left. Pioli, to an extent, tried being more on the same page. But is he really? Because of decisions like this. Because it goes like this, and it was similar. Again, we bring these parallels up between Gianpaolo all the time. Was he's not playing the players that he should be and developing, because that's the whole point of why management bought this player. They thought he was good enough now, so why don't you actually do something to see what you have? I think sitting a young player like this does no good for anyone in general. Reminds me of what Gio Reyna is having right now at Nottingham Forest. Young players have to play. And if you don't have a role for them in this current squad, like you mentioned, I think that's a great point too. Leave him on loan at Verona. They could have used him. Terracciano had a really good match against Milan earlier this season too. So he's proven he could actually like step up and play against formidable sides. The fact that we're actually having to sit here and wondering why this guy isn't getting minutes is just more of a microcosm of why Stefano Pioli won't be staying here at Milan.
And don't confuse too.
Yeah,
And people are going to confuse us, right? Because they see a headline like, guys, it's only Terracciano. It's not a big deal. These games don't mean anything anyway. But it kind of is just a microcosm of Stefano Pioli's player management and man management and how he utilizes player usage and giving opportunity where, in my eyes, it's warranted, right? So it's Terracciano. It's not a major thing here, but it's just proof in the pudding that his handling of players that you bring in, you expect to play some sort of role, and it's soul crushing and deflating for a young player who, to your point, needs minutes. Like, he was playing, this wasn't some fringe Serie B player or some Serie C player that we bought for peanuts. We spent a couple million on him in January to reinforce the team from a Serie A team where he played a substantial amount of minutes. And mind you, that Verona team was pretty much gutted between last summer and in January. They sold a lot of their players, including Terracciano, right? Yeah. So, and now you see how he's handled at Milan. So it's just kind of more so like the angst and the frustrations and the groans are like, this guy's not going to play. They bring him in, he's not going to play.
Yeah,
he might even get loaned out.
You just know the second there's a situation that makes so much sense to play a player, and when Pioli doesn't do it, you know that guy's in the doghouse, and you don't even know why.
And Florenzi,
how many times
haven't exactly been world beaters at right back.
How many times do we have people just like commenting or saying things where they're like, oh yeah, well, what if he just stinks? We don't know. We don't even know. Like the same with like Tonali. Remember Tonali gets the red card against Benevento, and then we don't see him for forever. Same thing with like Chow. Chow plays well. The lack of positive reinforcement is sort of an issue. And the thing is, like, when Pioli actually ends up trusting guys, he does a good job of developing them. But everyone likes to pick and choose when Pioli's doing a good job of developing. Oh, Pioli does a great job developing because he sat this guy for a year, and then all of a sudden the player plays well. Well, we didn't know. We didn't know. He wouldn't even give him an opportunity. Yassine Adli, perfect example. But I think that's time to kind of move on with that because we know sort of Pioli's future. And to move on with it, Pioli to Napoli has been picking up steam. Di Marzio has kind of been saying this. It's Pioli and then Vincenzo Italiano with the 1 and 2 favorites. Pioli to Napoli makes sense. He could sort of deploy that 4-3-3 system that they've had. They would be playing a much higher line than Napoli currently do. I think he would have the players in place for this. I wouldn't even be shocked if he tries a 4-2-3-1 with this, considering how it goes. I think Cavara would thrive with them. Pioli to Napoli, what would you make of this move? I think this is probably the best landing spot in the world for him. Agree or disagree?
For him, yeah. I mean, I think if you're looking for the next move, I mean, I know that, Napoli have had a miserable season to their standards relative to what they did last year, which in reality, they were never going to meet that same standard. But at the same time, I think if you're Stefano Pioli, you're thinking, it's not that bad. I go from Milan to Napoli. Like, Napoli are still a team that, they're 1 year removed from having an historic Scudetto winning season. They made really good noise in the Champions League. They made a pretty solid run there before Milan knocked them out. And they're a team that, had their praises sung by all of Europe, right? So there's a team there and a foundation there of players that I still like. I think if you look up and down that team, there's obviously been some changes with Kim and Jay, and last year Spalletti and Zielinski's going to leave, and there's a good chance even Osimhen gets sold for large amount. Looks like
We'll
that's
see.
kind of the road we're headed towards. But there's still players in that team that I think that can do a pretty good job. And with some additional investment, maybe they're back in the thick of things for a top 4 finish next year. So I think for Stefano Pioli, I mean, that's a pretty good move. It's not, I wouldn't say it's even a step back. I wouldn't say it's a vertical move. It's kind of
more lateral, if anything.
More lateral. So for his case, I think that's really good. But on the Italiano side, it's interesting too, because I think that, you know, his time at Spezia and Fiorentina, he's flirted with playing really good football. And what we've learned in this era of football itself is if you got to kind of sense where the coach is, and you got to sense where the player is in their development within their role. And I think that, look, you might look at Italiano's Fiorentina and saying like, they had moments, they had glimpses of looking good and playing good football. But maybe they underachieved. I know they're still in the Conference League and they're making a push there. But I think that ultimately people might say, maybe it's a little bit too much. Napoli has a lot of pressure. But I think we've learned more times than not that you need to be ahead of the curve, right? Is to finding the next coach, right? Is, hey, instead of going for the archaic, outdated way of doing things, there's your Motas, right? Like getting Mota the year before he explodes and his ideas come to fruition. Getting that top player, that top prospect before they have their breakout year, and now you're priced out. So I think with Italiano, his situation is going to be very interesting. If it's not Napoli, is it another year of Fiorentina? I don't think so. I think there is a.
I think it's been confirmed that he's out. Yeah, I mean, just
so is it Lazio? Do Lazio go in?
Lazio have Tudor. They have Tudor.
Do they like Tudor enough over Italiano?
I don't. There's no way that they're going to be.
Is Bologna? Do Bologna jump in for Italiano?
I mean, Bologna could be one to manage in the Champions League if Mota leaves.
I think
Italiano does that. There's no way Lazio sack a manager and then pay another one. There's just no way Lotito does that. There's just it's just not even possible. And then again, you know, Roma job's taken up. I think Italiano has done very fine with 3 competitions with a club that was like dead in the water. Like,
do you think there's any situation, and sorry to cut you off, do you think there's any scenario where Malta stays a year to play in the Champions League with Bologna? No?
Because he has Milan and Juve knocking on his door.
But look at Xabi Alonso.
Xabi Alonso's, they haven't lost. And they're the best team. And personally, if you look at the timelines, he's waiting for Real Madrid. Ancelotti plays one more year there.
Probably.
He manages one more year.
I'm saying to you,
it's totally different situations.
Malta's in a situation where maybe he's thinking like, I have a good crew here. Let me run it 1 year in the Champions League.
But they're not staying. Like Xerxes is going. You lose Ferguson. With Leverkusen, you're keeping the same thing, and you're on your way to one of the most incredible achievements ever. I get what you're saying. It's just Leverkusen is completely different than any other situation. I get what you mean though, but we'll have to see. I mean, Italiano, I guess he thought there would be better jobs. I don't think he foresaw what was happening with Roma. I think Italiano and Roma was the link up. To be there, or even Napoli to an extent. Italiano is more of this traditional, pragmatic type of Italian manager. I do, however, think his football suffers because he doesn't have a good striker, and you can say that with many managers, right? But the level of consistency in multiple competitions was so close to getting to another Coppa Italia final. They've had some devastating losses. They got to a Conference League final last year against a Premier League side who has infinitely more resources. I think he's done a good job there. I don't see how any of the positions and clubs that are, you know, waiting for that. I wouldn't completely rule out Juve, by the way. I wouldn't even completely rule that out. Say there's a scenario where Milan end up hijacking Thiago Motta, right? Just a hypothetical. Juve come knocking at his door, a little bit more modern style as opposed to Allegri, but he would come in cheaper. And what other options do Juve really have at the moment that they would be considering? I don't know. I could see that happening. But for the latest and final rumor regarding Milan, and this is just the biggest one that we have seen, Jorge Mendes is pushing Conceicao towards Milan This is from Longari. This isn't one of the top reporters with this, but just the idea of this. We know about AVB coming in now as the Porto president, and the future's kind of looking murky for Conceicao. He does have an opt-out, and he could leave the club since there is a new president. That deal he signed prior to was tied down to past management. For me, him, Fonseca are two of my favorites of the names that have been linked. Conceicao immediately brings a winning personality, attitude, familiarity within Serie A in itself, right? Champions League has had some really fantastic victories and knockouts with, again, it's with Porto, okay? As much as I love and respect Portuguese clubs, not even in the same level of ambition and I guess financial realm as some of these clubs. They do a great job of buying and selling, but he's used to a similar model where Milan are headed. Yeah, Milan probably do a better job of keeping certain players. I think Conceicao would be a fantastic hire. He's one of my top 3 favorites for this. Would you welcome and think Conceicao would be a good hire for Milan?
Yeah, I mean, if the headline here title is who should be the manager, and you guys saw my video on Twitter, right? I want Conte. I think it's pretty obvious that's how I feel. And I like him and I like Mota. Those are my 2 options, my preferred options. But if we can't get those 2 options, Conceicao is a good third. I think that what you just mentioned with Porto is pretty valid. There is a good body of work there. There is experience in the Champions League, and I think that people in the comments mentioned on the previous podcast we did, mentioning, well, what's Conte's record in Europe? I'm like, okay, but look at his domestic record. Like, you can't just kind of pigeonhole, right? We're talking domestic right now, right? We're not in the conversation of Real Madrid, City. That's where we want to be. We had a good run last year. We got bounced in the group stages this year, and then the year before we got bounced in the group stages. So, like, let's be real here, right? Or not the year before, so the semifinal, the first year, right? We made the Champions League. We got bounced in the group stage.
Yeah, knocked
so
out.
What we're trying to find here is a new direction, a new style of football that is more consistent, that has probably some more balance to it, and that just has fresh ideas in general. And Conceicao, I do like, from the little I've seen from him. I'm not going to come on here and say that, I've watched Porto's games extensively. I've studied his philosophy and all these sorts of things. I'm sure there are better people to speak on that than me. Maybe Adrian. Adrian from Urbana TV is a possibility. But and Rui as well. So
Rui has his own Porto podcast, which I'll plug for you guys.
Yeah,
real
plug
quick.
that.
RCR.
But at the end of the day, like, I just want a manager that's going to bring a fresh new ideas and a facelift to this team. I think is probably the right way to put it, because there is talent currently in the Milan system and in the Milan squad right now that over the next couple years, Milan can make a push. They're a team that still should be trying to aim for the title every year as a minimum. They should still try to be competing for Coppa Italia's and domestic honors. And they should still be ambitious enough in European competitions where they're not a laydown. They're not getting stomped by teams. They're not, fizzling out in the early stages of the tournament. That's what I'm looking for. And if you're a meme guy and you've seen the Conceicao video of him with the cigar partying in the locker room, that would be fun too. If you're a meme guy, I think that would be interesting content as well. So I'd be on board with Conceicao if it's not the first 2 names that I'd prefer.
And you said it's Conte, and then who's the one?
Conte and Mota. Those would be like the 2 guys I would like, just for the familiarity of coaching in Italy. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm in there and tossing Fonseca as well. But we'll see what happens. This one was a bit of a shorter episode compared to most. We have things going on. I guess we should just get our predictions in for Genoa. 2-1 for Milan. I don't know. I don't have much of a read on this. This is really a game that doesn't matter as much. We don't even know what 11 will be fielded. So, for me, 2-1 for Milan. I think Retegui ends up scoring, or Goodmanson as well. These are fantastic talents that Genoa has. And kudos to Gilardino, by the way. Really solid job as a manager this year. So your prediction?
I'm going to go 1-1. I just don't know what type of team we're going to get. I don't know what type of energy we're going to get when, the last couple weeks have been just absolutely dreadful. You see the potential protests, not even potential protests, there's going to be protests. So it's not going to be a lively atmosphere. And I think kind of compounding everything that's been going on with the club and all the uncertainty off the pitch and, everything kind of, boiling over. I just don't really sense that Milan are going to get up for this game. I mean, I know they're professionals and they should, take their job seriously and try to win. But I just don't see it with this team. I think that we're going to have mixed results the rest of the way. We're going to finish second or third. And we're just going to kind of go off into the summer with, hopefully a new change of direction. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Yep. All right, 1-1 and 2-1. We appreciate all of you guys and the support that you have given us. Like, comment, subscribe, watch the entire video. We are on Apple and Spotify as well and other podcast platforms. You just have to search up That Milan Pod, at That Milan Pod on Twitter. And then again, for Matt, you could follow him at Matt_Santangelo on Twitter, and then myself at Martino Puccio. Other than that, we're going to head out and enjoy our weekend, as I hope everyone else does as well. Take care, guys.